But I was like, you know what? Because I think in my interview they said, do you know what a leaderboard is? I had no idea. So I told them straight, no. But you know, sometimes you do need somebody to give you a chance, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to take that chance, as in you need to put yourself in front of that.
I started these conversations to discuss leadership, mentorship, growth, and so much more from voices you may not have heard from before. I hope the conversations inspire you, motivate you, and give you something to think about. This is Leadership in Colour from myself, Shez Iqbal, supported and powered by MIFA. Welcome to Leadership in Colour. Mate, so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me,
right?
man.
Or happy to be here, rather, right? So I appreciate the invite. So where are we right now?
So this is our Warner Brothers Discovery Old Street office.
Okay.
It's where the CNN studios are based.
Yeah.
And some of the legacy Turner sports entertainment brands. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my unit, CNN International Commercial, is based here.
The reality is that my relationship with Warner Brothers Discovery goes back quite a few years. Back in the day, I used to work for a certain native advertising ad tech company.
Oh, yes.
And I remember you had an office on Great Marlborough Street.
That's right, yeah.
Which was a beautiful office. This is not a bad office either.
Yeah,
This is also a lovely office. But that office had, I think it was Turner House, right?
Turner House, correct. Yeah.
And it had a particular feel to it. I remember the editorial floor and...
You know, it's when Soho was a centre of the London media industry, which I don't think is so much the case anymore. It really had that kind of very much in the middle of it all kind of vibe. That was great. It was a really good office. I mean, pretty much every desk had its own mousetrap. You know, it was like near the Tube, a lot of old buildings around. So I think it was kind of a right time to move. But we moved here in February 2020.
Yeah.
For a month or so, obviously, before we couldn't be here for a while. But then, no, it's a nice space. Yeah. Old Street and Farringdon looks like the new place to be, apart from the South Bank, obviously, which has become really popular as well.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so the organisations have moved sort of far and wide, right?
Yeah.
But back in the day, you could walk from CNN, as it was back then, all the way just over to Vogue House, in terms of Condé Nast.
Yeah.
You could take a quick trip over to Dennis.
Yeah.
That was walking distance.
BBC.
BBC as well. Yeah, you're right. That was there as well. So it was all going, and everyone sort of spread out a bit more.
Yeah. Seems to be the case, but I think, you know, how it is post-COVID, shrinking footprints just seems to be the sensible thing for a lot of people to do. But I think it's still the case. I think Soho is still got some of that shine, but I think Farringdon's becoming kind of a go-to place for a lot of companies now.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I was actually in Farringdon again many moons ago because I used to work at The Guardian.
Oh yeah.
So we had 190 Farringdon Road, or 119, sorry, Farringdon Road.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, it feels like a lot of organisations left and then they've come back.
But actually, Diageo bought Turner House and done a really, really good job. It looks amazing, actually. It's a really nice
element
office.
of jealousy there. It's like driving past your old home.
Yeah, maybe, and somebody's done a really good job.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, well, why didn't we do?
Why didn't we do an extension? Yeah,
exactly.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, I should have put those new windows in.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, you can so easily put a swimming pool in there.
What they've done to their lawn looks really good.
Really. So, for those who don't know you, who are you?
So, my name's Faisal Karmali.
Yeah.
I'm Vice President of Digital Business Operations, and our business units kind of have a mixed name. CNN International Commercial is our business unit, but also Warner Brothers Discovery International. So that's everything outside the US.
Right.
And not looking after it wholly, but working on projects that look after a lot of centralization of tech and data product and things like that.
So on a day-to-day basis, what does that actually mean?
So in terms of our data strategy, making sure that we have a unified view of our ecosystem outside the US. Obviously, the US it's a very big market, and they obviously have a big footprint in terms of specialist knowledge and people who work there. So they are quite obviously very central and future thinking. So we internationally want to stitch that. We want to make sure that we have a similar view and a similar outlook and product suite. So it's as Warner Media, and Discovery joined a couple of years ago. As time has gone on, it's just working out the best ways that we can be cohesive as one company, which to be honest, we're in a good spot now. Produce some good products.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You certain about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's always going to be business challenges, and there are a lot of business units within our company, but actually, if you can create something central, everyone can take advantage of that, even if they do run their own business. That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
And how many name changes have you gone through in the past 5 years?
So in the past 5 years, only 2.
Okay.
So in the past 8 years since I've been here, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like more though.
It's I think Time Warner and Turner especially has changed hands quite a few times. But that's, I think, consolidation in the industry is a natural thing, and that's all that it's been. So we see that in a lot of tech, a lot of consolidation, or big tech buying smaller tech. Publishers have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
We've got to join in to create that scale, because individually it's going to be difficult to compete in this market otherwise. So therefore it's a positive. I see it as just part of a bigger and bigger organisation, which is good.
Yeah.
It's a big multinational organisation. It's kind of what I was aiming for in my career. I know we're going to get to it, but kind of what I wanted to go for was to find something truly global with good brands that I liked, and people who are very interesting and diverse in every way, not just in terms of race or gender or sexual preference. It's diverse in terms of thoughts and what they do and how they do it, and so the exposure I get is really cool. That's probably what I like about it. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
How do you feel in your current role? Do you feel like you've reached a point in your life, in your career, where you can sit back and be proud of your achievements, or is there still a lot of markers ahead that you're going for?
No, absolutely. I can be retrospective and think, you know what, I did some good stuff there. I'm pretty proud. I'm proud of the things that I've launched and things that I've worked on, and the teams that potentially I've built, and and what they're doing now and things like that. Like, that is nice. But I've always looked forward as well and made sure I have some sort of ambition or a goal that I want to reach. So that's the carrot for me. I have to give myself a carrot, stick it to my head so that I can see it, and then go after it. It's kind of how I've got through things, to be honest, as I've gone, is to make sure that I have something ahead of me that I'm trying to get to. And it's not like, again, like you asked, it's not that I don't appreciate it now or the past, but I want to look forward as well. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's the nature of it, I guess.
And it's important, right? I think those that I look at who are doing particularly well, or those that I aspire to be a little bit more like, are all thinking a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ahead. I do a bit of coaching, and actually it's a lot of what we coach people on as well, is where do you want to be? What do you want to be known for? Yeah. So it's great to have that sort of mentality. Yeah,
and I think people are scared of having simple things as that goal, like a salary, even. If you can't think of, I don't know what my next job would be, I don't know what, if I want to chase a title or, whatever it is. It can be as simple as, actually, I'm looking for another X amount. Maybe I should think about that. That will help, maybe even help you define a role. And again, that's probably the last option, is to think how much more do I want to earn? But you should be looking for companies then that are, that keep you happy in terms of your job. You've got to be satisfied and enjoy where you work. Otherwise, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So there's so many factors, but yeah. I mean, for me, it was title, but job titles can mean anything in a lot of places. Every company's different, especially American companies and European companies, Asian companies, Latin American. In terms of the structures are so different. So title, but then it's kind of more of a level that I was aiming for. So I try to always, obviously, step up each time I moved.
Yeah.
Or internally within where I am. Yeah.
Because titles can translate to something quite different depending on which organisation you're in, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I first started working, my title was something executive, account executive.
Yeah.
But my dad was like, "Oh wow, you're an executive."
Right.
But in media, executive is bottom of the barrel,
Right.
right? Like you're kicking off. So that's my reference point to you know the title can just mean something different in different contexts.
But I think, I think it is US and European.
Yeah.
You can kind of differentiate. It is quite a different thing.
VP.
VP, but then head of now is
Okay.
equivalent to VP in a lot of companies.
Right.
Because you're the head of a department, which kind of makes sense actually.
Right.
The VP is obviously quite a legacy thing that's come from US structures. But it was still, I knew what was the balance, or you know, if I'd have gone to a startup, I would have tried to go for MD, you know. So I know that in terms of levels, MD is probably a bit of a bigger role, but in terms of levels, you can kind of see where everything is, and that's kind of how I interpreted what my next step needed to be, or what I wanted to aspire to. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I judged it.
So I want to take a slight gear change.
Yeah.
What's the name Faisal mean?
It means judge or arbitrator, apparently. But also it was the name of King Faisal of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So that's where the name became popular, I think, obviously centuries ago. And the spelling of my name is Faisal, which is the Arabic spelling as well. So that's kind of that's where it's come from. Yeah.
Because some people spell it with a Z.
Z. There's E's sometimes.
Okay.
My name has been spelled many different ways.
Yeah.
Faysel was probably my favourite.
Yeah.
Which, if you say it, sounds right. Faisal.
Yeah.
But
F doesn't sound wrong either.
We're right. It's kind of like a word puzzle. Where you can spell it in so many different ways. It's actually quite interesting.
And how do your American colleagues say your name?
Well, the common ones I get are, and it's not just American colleagues, it's a lot of British and actually any nationality really. Faisal.
Faisal, yes.
Yeah.
Of course,
Faisal.
I've not heard that one.
Yeah. Those are the most common ones. Yeah.
Yeah. You had any odd pronunciations? Or are they as strange as they get?
I think the strangest one has been Karmali. Faisal Karmali.
Was that your
somehow
email?
chopped off the end of my first name and attached it to my second. But you know, it ended up being a nickname at one of my previous workplaces, Karmali.
Yeah.
So I'll run with it.
It sounds like a fantastic footballer's name.
I'm going to regret saying that, aren't I?
No. So Farmali. No,
Farmali.
No, it's that's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. So talk to me about your upbringing then.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm born and raised southwest London.
Okay.
Southwest London. But my mum was born in Iraq.
Okay.
In Basra, and my dad was born in Oman, in Mathura, which is near Muscat. And then two more generations before, we're from Oman, including my mum's side. But generationally, we're really Indian, part of India that is now Pakistan. We're kind of on the border of that, so that's kind of my heritage. It's quite complicated, so when people ask, I generally say I'm Arabic, because my parents are both born in Arabia, but realistically, if we go back a few generations, Indian, as you are now. And then I was born in Wimbledon. Sorry?
Posh kid.
No, not at all. There was a hospital that me and my siblings and I were all born there, because it was just a hospital that was nice. That was a good hospital that was close by where we lived. So my parents lived in New Malden at the time. But I grew up in a single parent house with my mum looking after us in South Croydon, so not a posh kid.
Yeah.
So growing up in the 80s in Croydon was, as you can imagine, there was some challenges there. But and then I've always been in Southwest London. My family's very international. They've all moved their way into different countries: Dubai, Seattle, and Toronto. But I've stayed. Well, I've kept the family base here. That's my background. That's my upbringing. Yeah.
What's South Croydon? I have to ask for personal reasons, and to my wife, I'm going to try and do Croydon a bit of justice here, right? Yeah. So we live not too far from South Croydon now.
Yeah.
I have to say that it's not that bad now.
It's not.
But back in the day, it certainly wasn't that great.
So growing up in South Croydon as an Asian kid in the 80s, there was some challenges I had, but it's a place called Selsdon, which you'll probably know because I know you live in Purley. which is actually very nice. It's very green. It's a beautiful place. I know
Yeah.
Croydon gets a bad rep sometimes, but
Not just sometimes.
yeah, all the time. Yeah. But also my grandparents lived in West Croydon, which is where it really, it was quite rough. So it wasn't a shiny upbringing, but I had a very happy childhood. My mother did a really good job of creating a nice, loving household. So I was lucky that side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my brother and sister, have got families now and have moved away, but it's that upbringing really that's grounded us all and made sure that we realise where we've come from. It's not happy and shiny. It's you have to have some context sometimes. But yeah, that was my upbringing. But great, yeah. Schooled there as well. Went to university in Greenwich. Did my degree in marketing and communications, which actually I went into, funnily enough.
Yeah.
So, which is always is quite a rare story nowadays that people actually go into what they did a degree in. But yeah. That's my history.
Do you tell your mum how thankful you are?
Yeah.
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 What's that relationship like?
Yeah,
And I ask only because
Yeah.
if you're growing up in a single parent household, the relationship with your parents is very different, or your parents
Yeah.
is very different to those who grow up with 2.4, right?
Yeah. By the way, I still talk to my dad, and
Yeah.
we're on really good terms, and one big happy family now. But obviously, during those times, it was just my mum. Well, I don't say every day, "Wow, my mum's so thankful," but I think she knows, and her pride is probably what is her biggest kind of positive from it.
Is there something that you haven't said to your mum that you'd like to say?
Oh gosh, mate, it's like a therapy session now. No, actually, no. I think I tell her enough. Well, yeah. That's fine. Yeah. No, she's an amazing woman. She's really sorted us out. She's so strong. I can't believe what she went through. 3 bloody kids.
Yeah.
On her own.
Yeah.
It's not having to start her own business, studying while growing and bringing up 3 kids. 2 were teenagers. My brother and sister are a bit older than me. That must have been tough. So yeah, much respect. Yeah, for sure. And much respect to anyone else who's doing that, because I know there's quite a few people doing that at the moment. But yeah, no, it was good upbringing. I was more than happy. Obviously, I had to work, hard from a young age, and my first job was 16, which is good. That's fine. So I appreciate what I have. So when I buy my watch, I don't feel guilty about that.
There is a thing there, though, right? So, being someone who was working at the age of 16, did you find that you had more money in your pocket than some of your friends did, or were all your friends also working at the same age?
A lot of them were. No, I didn't. I didn't feel like I had really a stable amount until probably my mid-30s, to be honest. Early.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the change there? Full-time job?
It was a change of job.
Yeah.
Where I was able to do some things and sort out some issues, and then I've been able to kind of be all right since then. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of those issues, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you about your bank balance. Don't worry about
Okay.
it, or your history with money. This I'm not the tax man.
Yeah.
But I remember, when we caught up last time, you reminded me that you had some, I would say, traumatic experiences, right? I mean, there's one in particular.
Yeah.
In terms of an accident.
Yeah.
That you had.
So I finished university, had my first job out of uni, which was media sales for Rebusiness Information.
Oh yeah.
For Computer Weekly. So I was working there. I was in sales, which I've never done again, by the way. Well, I kind of do it a bit now, but anyway. I was heading home one day. Somebody tried to overtake a bus and ran me over. I broke my spine in 2 places.
Wow.
And my leg was broken in about 15 places. So I was 23, 24, and that actually I was out of action for 2.5 years, 6 surgeries over 2.5 years. So imagine I missed the middle of my 20s when you're just beginning to accelerate your career or figure out what you want to do. So that was super tough. Trying to come back in, I was very keen to come back into the industry and come back to work. So, but I didn't really know what to look for. I knew I wasn't enjoying that sales job before that happened. So I came back into the industry. I didn't really know which direction I wanted to go. Again, I was saying I wasn't enjoying. I knew wasn't enjoying sales before that. I was, and I had a freshly broken back. I was kind of conscious of that and don't want to jump straight in. But I knew that I needed to get going, and because of missing 2.5 years of your career, So I just looked and found whatever I could, and ended up at a place called GCAP Media in ad operations. I didn't know what either of those things were. Ad operations or GCAP Media. Turns out, when I went for the interview, it was the Capital Radio building in Leicester Square.
Oh,
and it's now global, global media. And ad operations was apparently a niche that nobody was doing very well at the time. So it gave me a kind of path to be able to forge my way and become a bit of a specialist in it. And that's where it started, and that was 2007.
Oh, wow.
So I've been in the industry 20 years with that gap, of course, now. Global, with GCAP as it was, I went through a merger. It's my first of 6 publisher mergers. I don't look for them. I guess maybe...
They just find you?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess I get hired generally. Well, I was hired in my last few roles where they're in a transitionary period. It's a traditional media company, meaning it's radio, print, newspapers, TV, trying to push forward the digital side of their business, and that's generally where I fit in terms of workflow, operational, that kind of side of things, and product, and So I guess because I've generally joined companies when they're in that stage, they're probably building to a point where they can sell or. So who knows what the future holds wherever I am, but that's probably why publisher mergers have followed me.
Yeah.
Or I've followed them. I don't know which way around, but
that experience though of stepping out of the mix, especially in your 20s. How has that impacted you in terms of your relationship with work and your relationship with people now?
What it's done is actually, and I've always been quite a chilled dude, right?
I can contest that, yeah.
I've always been quite. I don't get headed up and stressed, or even if I do, it's not outward as much. But that experience, especially, gave me some context of how bad things could be. So whatever situation I face, personal or career, I kind of have that benchmark of, this could be a lot worse. Let's take a step back and realize that this isn't the end of the world, this scenario, whatever that scenario is. Let's take a fresh approach to it, or actually, because this isn't going to break you or make you, you actually start thinking a bit more clearly about that situation and find solutions. And I don't just think, oh, you know what, gosh, I had a broken back, this isn't that bad. It's just something that's in there because it's set that level maybe for me. And you don't have to go through a really bad accident to have that, I don't think. It's just realizing that actually, this isn't the end of the world, this scenario that you're in. And that's what it's given me day to day. And maybe why it's allowed me, with kind of my kind of chilled outlook as it was, but also allowed me to have a bit more of a context on the situation that I'm in. That's probably what it's given me in terms of my day to day.
I think if I think about things from a grassroots level, there have been so many times when I first started off in my career, for example. I remember I've been in sales jobs, in commercial jobs for just over 20 years now. But that first job that I had, which wasn't that different from RBI actually, mine was at Euromoney.
Yeah.
I remember walking around the block with my then manager, because I had, I think it was my third or fourth quarter there, and I just had really, really tough targets.
Yeah.
And that seemed like the end of the world to me.
Right.
That I wasn't going to hit these targets, and therefore I'm not going to be that valuable in the organization. But the reality is exactly as you said, right? Things could be a lot worse. It's a job at the end of the day. If I wasn't performing and I was let go of because of that, then I could find something else.
And you know what? Your career is not going to end at that point.
Yeah.
And also, if it's not something that you enjoy day to day and you're just doing it to get to that target, maybe look at a different part of the industry. You know, that's allowed. I think people are scared of maybe taking a left turn and trying to stay completely central. You know, you can take a left. I mean, like ad operations, I had no idea what it was. But I was like, you know what? Because I think in my interview they said, do you know what a leaderboard is? I had no idea. So I told them straight, no. But you know, sometimes you do need somebody to give you a chance, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to take that chance, as in you need to put yourself in front of that. I know I've been using a sports analogy recently, which I always butcher and I'll probably get completely wrong. But you never score any of the goals you don't shoot. What is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you miss every opportunity you don't take.
Yeah. I mean, someone said that to me recently as well, which is the conversation there was about Cannes and Impossible, which is in Miami, and you know what? Some of these events are great. You will get some value from them if you're there.
Yeah.
You will get zero value if you're not. And I think that, you know, it's exactly what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you'll if you try to shoot, then you'll score some of them.
Yeah.
If you never try to shoot, you know that you're not going to score anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, you know, things like that. I don't think networking for the sake of networking is good. You have to legitimately be there as a person having a conversation with another person, not trying to get something or thinking, oh, what can I, you know, how can I use this network? And that's how probably my network has grown, is because actually I've either made friends or acquaintances within the industry, and, you know, industry colleagues who have been, who've become friends, and, you know, and that circle and that industry, you know, industry circle is so important. I mean, pretty much how we bumped into each other along the way, right? So, you know, and you can't force it. You've got to be willing to actually go there and, you know, and actually just be yourself and socialize. And, you know, if you've got a good character and, you know, you're actually what that person wants at that time, quite easily find a job that way, or even grow your circle in terms of, if you are a commercial, you know, if you are a commercial person, you know, you never know where somebody's going to go.
So I'm going to do something that probably nobody should ever do, right? I'm going to let you into a couple of, I'm going to let you into the side of our relationship on my end.
Oh yeah.
So I was working for a startup called Sublime. So they're high impact ads, right? And I remember all our sales guys. I was heading up publishing, or the publisher side, and all our sales guys were like, yeah, you know what? Faisal goes for the drink over here, or he's usually, you know, grabbing a coffee over there. We really want to work with CNN. Why don't you go out there? And I'm not going to lie, there were moments where I did approach him. I was like, hey, Faisal. But because it wasn't really, like, we didn't really know each other.
Yeah.
The conversation didn't really go in. And how much can you force that sort of thing? But I have to admit, when I let that objective go, and I just had a chat with you, and I can't remember what the chat was. I think we were talking about hiring people, or we were talking about growing or something, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we found out that our families rolled around in the same circles, you know, back in the day. There was that connection, and then of course we built the relationship, and that's the same as so many of the other, you know, relationships that I've got. So I think, you know, what you're saying is absolutely spot on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can't go into sales mode, I don't think, you know, and there are some events that kind of try and force the issue a little bit, and I don't think they're well received, to be honest, by either side. But it's a mechanism to do that. But, you know, it's easy to say it has to happen naturally, because you know, you have to put yourself in a situation to be able to find those people if that's who you're looking for. But, you know, I think if anyone looked at the 6 degrees of separation for somebody they're looking to get to know in this industry, you'll find someone who knows that person, and, you know, if you really wanted to try and maneuver into that situation, you probably could in a natural way. Anyway, I'm just thinking out loud here, but yeah, there's scenarios you can do it where it's a bit more natural, I think. But for me, my network has been super important. Even when there's been like challenges in the workplace or the industry, being able to have a soundboard with someone else who's in the same situation as me, to kind of sense check if I'm doing this right, or what their approach is, and so we can compare notes. That's been super important actually, especially in the last probably 6-7 years when everything's in the industry's got more complicated because of privacy and all that kind of thing. That's lent itself well to being able to learn from other people, which has been good.
I have to say that I'm super surprised by from the evolution of publishers in particular, because 20 years ago, there's no way that I could imagine that the Telegraph and the Guardian and News UK and perhaps your good self and a few others getting around a table and comparing notes. Of course, you've got the Ozone Project, which does facilitate some of those conversations as well. And there's the IAB, there's the Association of Online Publishers. There's all these groups out there, but I'm always so surprised at how open publishers are.
Yeah, so I tell you what, it started, and I was very conscious of doing this in 2016 with GDPR, right? I think that's really where it's begun, where we realised that as publishers, we're not necessarily always competing against each other. So we've got to start, we can actually help each other, and all ships rise if we can figure out as an industry how to do things properly.
Yeah.
And compare notes. And that's pretty much where it started, but it's continued, and it's continued officially and unofficially now. So where it has taken the form of WhatsApp, to be honest, in terms of groups and things, so people can share information. And there are some organisations that are doing some things a bit formally as well, a bit more formally, which is great, and that works. But yeah, it came around from GDPR, and because there were so many different interpretations, and if we can compare and try and get to one place, that's pretty much where it came from.
So you've got these WhatsApp groups, you've got these informal drinks, you've got formal drinks, you've got formal events.
Yeah.
So you're all catching up a lot more. What would you say to someone who's coming into the industry or has been in the industry for a few years and looking to grow a bit? Because for them, when they go to one of these drinks or one of these events, it's going to be quite daunting, right? To try and break into that inner circle. And it really does feel like there's an inner circle.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to force yourself into it, but at the same time, I think if depending on the scenario that you're there at that event, if you're invited by a group, or if a tech partner or a publisher partner, whichever side of the industry you're on, or an agency partner has invited you, they'll have a group of people that they've invited. That's the beginning of that circle. If you just find someone and just talk to them, you're never going to get to meet that circle. But if you tell that vendor or whoever it is that's brought you to that event or invited you to that event, I'll catch up with you, and if you've got a space that you're entertaining, or your other guests, it doesn't even have to be somebody that you potentially work with or is a potential client, or somebody that you're going to sign up as a tech company. It can just be anyone, because you got to remember, if you look at a lot of careers, people have just moved all around the industry. So that person might end up running a team that's perfect, that has a perfect role for you in 3-4 years, right? So it's all about just putting yourself in that situation where you get to meet a diverse spread of people, no matter what they do, to be honest. Because you might meet someone who's in HR. Like, why would I talk to them? Well, they do recruitment. They're probably a good person to know. Or something like that. I'm just thinking out loud. But yeah, a lawyer. But actually, lawyers are so central to kind of everything we do in terms of partners now. And they kind of very much understand the media side of the industry now as well, because of again, privacy. That someone like that, great profile to have as a kind of network.
And what about your thoughts on the fact that, networking with that objective in mind is one thing, but actually just go out there and be yourself as well, right?
Yeah, don't go into that situation thinking, right, who can I get to know?
Right.
It's just talk to the person next to you, even if you don't know them. A lot of these times you have a badge anyway, so you can kind of get an idea, but talking to anyone really, who is in the industry, just having a chat about what each other does. I think that's super important. Again, I've been quite lucky here. I get exposure to a lot of sides of the industry here. Obviously, we have marketing teams, so we have the buy side, the sell side, we have technology within one company. So I'm quite lucky that I get exposure to that. But those people all obviously exist within all these events, not necessarily networking events, but in industry events as a whole. If you sat next to someone in one of those theatres where somebody's presenting at Adweek next week, for example, chat to the person next to you.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit cheesy, but it's a legitimate thing. If that's what you're looking for anyway. If you're if you just want to watch the person, then obviously you'd have to do that. But if you're looking to grow your network, totally makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You ever had any struggles in networking or growing your network or progressing your career because of your background or your heritage?
I don't think I have. I'm lucky that the fact that I've had to pause, because that's good. That means I've not had any overt racism in my career that I can think of. Obviously, a lot of people, I have been stereotyped in certain organisations I've worked for in the past as the IT guy.
Oh yeah.
Somebody asked me to fix their printer for them because they said, "Oh, he's digital, he's tech." But in terms of progress, I don't feel it, no. But in the background, I'm sure that has been the case, to be honest with you. And it's I think I've faced more unconscious than forthright prejudice along my career. But look, it's there. Like I speak like I do. I don't know. There's probably features. I'm from London. All these things maybe make me a slightly different profile, but no, for sure it's been there. Yeah, it's there. Yeah. But I know that here, for example, we're taking a real conscious effort to make sure that changes as well. That MIFA is a great organisation. There's things like that because I'm on our diversity. On our board, diversity board. Okay. So just for a couple of years. In terms of the opportunities that are presented here and the things that, I think the way I've described it is, we want every profile of human to consume our content. We should have those people in the room when we're trying to figure out how we get them to consume our content.
Absolutely.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, that one. So, but I say that, but it's not to a lot of companies. That they'll still maybe gravitate towards what they know. And look, nowhere's perfect still, to be honest, to this day. Even if it's the reverse, where people maybe have gone the other way and try to only hire diverse hires, actually you do need a balance. But yeah, I think, again, Warner Brothers Discovery have done a really good job. And it's something that I can sit back and, not just because I work here, I can say, I'm proud of that initiative, and diversity in the newsroom, and because especially what I look after, a very international team, so we do have that kind of view. But yeah, it's been there. I think it's always still there a little bit. But things like this are good.
Yeah.
That actually, there is a path to something, and I think it's less visible than it was, but it's still visible in terms of diversity at higher levels.
I think the reality is that I like what you said there about the fact that nowhere's perfect, right? Because the reality is, what does perfect look like?
Yeah.
And we don't really know what perfect looks like, but we know when something's not right. Yeah. Like, you get a sense and a feeling when things aren't right.
Totally, you're right. There's no such thing as perfect, but when it's effortless.
Yes.
When having a diverse workforce is effortless and just a natural path, rather than. So I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of quotas. I don't want to ever think that I was hired because of the colour of my skin, which is weird for me to say. but I'd rather be on merit than somebody hiring me over somebody else who's more qualified because they need someone of colour in their organisation. I don't believe in that. But again, I've been quite lucky in the organisations I work for, maybe where there has been a bit of diversity. Whereas I know that there probably are organisations that need that to push them forward in that space. So I'm kind of sitting on my own fence here, but I don't really want that to be the case, but it has to be in some places. Sorry, I probably didn't answer your question.
No, you did. No, no problem at all. I personally, I'm actually okay with quotas, and the reason why I'm okay with quotas is I sort of figure, well, if there are two people that are right for the role, head to head,
yeah,
but and it's a person of color and a white person, and you go for the person of color because you want to invest more in minorities within your organization because you think there's a ripple effect from hiring that person, then clearly that person is the right person to hire.
Sure.
So I don't see it as hitting a quota. I think the quotas are set because there's a problem that needs to be solved.
Sure.
But I hear what you're saying, which is actually if there are two people and the person of color isn't as good as the white person, but that person of color is hired, then they're not hired on merit.
So I totally agree. There needs to be a metric or something to and there are obviously reports that come out every year, but generally it's retrospective of what we've not done well at this level of management for diversity, whether it's male, female, other or race. Then they have to figure out how to then they have to give themselves a quota, and the fact that that's come from something that they've not done right, for me, just feels a bit imbalanced. But it's a personal opinion, absolute personal opinion. And I think if all of a sudden they go the other way, then you do need something to rebalance that for sure. And a quota is the simplest mechanism to do that. But yeah, it's just a personal thing for me. I would hate to think that I got a job because of the colour of my skin and not on merit.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. I totally hear you.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Sure.
So let's go back to the day job.
Yeah.
What's keeping you up at night?
I sleep pretty well.
Yeah. It's because you haven't got kids, mate.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Well, what's on my mind right now? As I was mentioning, we are a very big multinational company with lots of different moving parts, lots of business units. It's and everyone runs their own business. So nobody is trying to run everything within that. For sure, there are a lot of business units that will run independently. But how do we create a cohesive view of Warner Brothers Discovery as a whole? And that's kind of what we've done with some of the WBD products that we're launching. So WBD Connect we've just launched, which is kind of it's a programmatic deal where you can buy across the portfolio. So it really is, for me, it's kind of centralizing that. The other side is ensuring, and our data product is continuously at the front, top of the game. That's really, in terms of day-to-day and day job, a lot of what it is just freshness of data, making sure the structure of how we've delivered that is important. The rest of it is working, multinationally. And again, I love this because I do get a diverse view of cultures and outlooks and working practices across the world, which is super interesting. I was in Japan for for one of our events recently, and just seeing that culture and the work ethic, and it was amazing to see. So I'm really lucky to be exposed to all of that. But trying to create a single product that services the whole world is tricky because there are needs for each market. Every market has its own needs. So it's not keeping me up at night, but that's a constant, is making sure that you're servicing every market that needs to be serviced at the same time. Especially as I look after the operational teams as well. In terms of levels of complexity by market, and that's a kind of never-ending job. But I'm glad of that. Otherwise, I'd be bored.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And that's what keeps me, that's what keeps me going in this role. It's ever evolving, which is fine with me. Because if I'm just sitting there doing the same thing every day and not learning anything new, then I'd probably move on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I think that the reality is that people like yourself have been. You say you've been with the organisation for 8 years.
8 years.
So I mean, 8 years. It's not a short stint. Although the reality is that you haven't worked for the same company for 8 years because the company itself is evolved.
I worked for CNN for 8 years.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
fair enough. Stand corrected.
Yeah.
but everything around it has changed, right?
Yeah.
So there have been lots and lots of opportunities to lean in on whatever's going on in the wider organisation.
Yeah.
And that's got to keep you, dare I say, entertained, right, in your role, and allow you that opportunity to keep learning. If you stay still for too long, then you become less relevant sometimes, or you feel less relevant.
Absolutely.
And you can get a bit bored in your role.
Yeah. So there's no such thing as mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Right? I think in our industry,
no.
There's no such thing. But there are roles where you can get into that you can maybe take it as far as you can. And if you're not getting that progress to another level, then it is time to move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
If every day is the same for you, some people do enjoy that, and will do that for 20 years, and that's fine. Everyone is different. But I think in terms of if we're talking about trying to progress in your career, that's where you have to think to yourself, okay, well, what's next? And again, like I was saying earlier, you can take that left field choice, maybe do something different within the industry if you wanted to. If the last 2 roles, for example, have been very similar and you've had to do the same thing again and again and again, and it's not something that super doesn't excite you or anything, taking that left field is fine. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I forgot your question, but
I don't know if there was a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so almost coming to an end.
Yeah.
If you were to give yourself advice at the beginning of your career, or if it's easier, advice to someone else who is at the start of their career, what would that advice be?
Always look for progress within your role. And that doesn't necessarily mean moving up. In terms of it's looking across all the different facets of the company you work for, or even the team you work for, and exposing yourself to all of that. I think that was super important for me, because it gave me an idea of maybe this might be something else I'm good at, or I can apply these 2 things together, and there's a role out there. If you think our industry is huge, digital industry is massive, right? And I'm not just talking about the big tech, because they do hire a lot of people, Amazon, Google, Metas. But there is such an interesting breadth of companies in our industry. Just knowing more about something that's slightly different to what your day-to-day is, for me, that's what I wish I'd kind of learnt more, and maybe pick some things up earlier that I've now retrospectively, as time has gone on, had to figure out. But if I knew more, I may have taken a different path, So I don't think I'd change anything in terms of my path, for example. But I wouldn't say to myself, you've got to do that differently in 5 years' time, otherwise you're going to not do well. Because obviously, whatever my path has been has taken me here, and I'm happy with where I am. But know more about what else is going on. Be inquisitive about that. For me, I think that's super important. That doesn't mean you have to tap the person on the shoulder. Hey, what's going on with that? You can know about these things without having to have to really dig into it with someone else. But I think people love to talk about what they do generally. So if you do ask, like recently, I've been talking to the Warner Brothers marketing team around the data infrastructure and that kind of thing. So it's really been interesting getting to know their business a little bit and just how they work. And so I'm still doing that. I find that super interesting, and that'll keep you more satisfied in your job as well.
I think it's really, really good advice. I think, especially right now, where people, we're in your offices now, and to be frank, there are some people that sort of walk past, what have you, most of them wondering what the hell we're doing, right?
Absolutely. Who's this guy in a blazer?
But super important, guys.
Well, maybe, I don't know.
Of course you are.
The Big Brother chair, looks like.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even notice the throne. But it's not, let's say it's not busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that opportunity to connect that we used to have when the offices were heaving is less so. But what people don't realise is you can use Slack, you can use email, you can reach out to individuals, and just say, hey, we haven't worked together. I've got no agenda here.
Yeah.
But how do you fancy just grabbing a coffee, albeit a virtual coffee, and I get to know a little bit more about your business unit. You get to know a little bit, and I actually do that myself, and you'd be surprised at how receptive people are.
Absolutely.
As you said, people like to talk about themselves.
But also, some people
are
are so busy in their job that they won't just go for a coffee.
Yeah.
But if you think about that, if you take a step back, you work in the same company, so there is something that you do that's related to what they do. Mm-hmm. So if you tie that, so operations with marketing, right? So we might be able to help you with some sort of tracking, or just explain to me how you work with this, and then that begins that conversation. Because as much as we would love to give everyone some time for a coffee, or which obviously we might do, but somebody who is day to day is slammed, they may not do that. So there might be another route in terms of just being able to associate by actually talking about a work scenario. Again, we work for the same company, so I think people are always more than happy to do that, and that begins that conversation. And that comes back to the earlier point of talk to the person next to you, even if it is at work. It doesn't have to be at an event, or
absolutely.
Having that diverse spread of views and knowing more about different things, different facets of our industry is super important. You never know what may interest you.
The closing tradition on this podcast is that you name the episode.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. A glass room of emotion.
Glass room of emotion. That's that's a perfect clickbait answer. You got any others, or are you happy to go with that?
No, let's think of something else. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
When you were talking earlier,
there's
a couple of things that you said that I thought were really resonated with me. One was what you just said now, what you said earlier, is always just talk to the person next to you.
Yeah.
I don't know how that sounds to you, but something around that.
Well, I mean, I think that sounds good because I'm talking to the person next to me. So talk to the person next to you works. Let's do that. Yeah, that sounds good, man.
Faisal, I really appreciate your time. Genuinely, it's great to know you.
Yeah.
Right? This certainly speaks to the value of a network to be able to reach out to you.
Absolutely.
And for you to be so patient with me and my setup.
Right. Yeah, all good.
Bring so much stuff into your office, and some of it works, some of it didn't.
Thanks for doing it, man.
No,
it's quite a setup you've got now. So
thank you.
Look forward to seeing it.
I hope you enjoy the playback of this.
Yeah.
I hope your mum listens as well.
Oh yeah, I'll send it around.
Yeah.
It'll make it into the family WhatsApp group, I'm sure, once you put it somewhere.
Mate, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming in. Yeah.
No worries at all. Take care. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Cheers. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.